There are seasons in life that change without warning. One day, everything is in place, and the next, everything starts to fall apart. You lose something you were sure came from God, a job, an achievement, a person, and suddenly, it's no longer there. And what weighs the most isn't just the loss, it's the question that remains. If God gave this to me, why did this happen? Because when something starts off wrong, we can accept it. But when it looked like a blessing and still slips away, it shakes your faith in a different way. And in the middle of all this, you keep saying, "I'm fine," but deep down, you know you're not. There are days when we say, "I'm okay," but inside, everything has already collapsed. You keep living your life, your routine, talking to people, friends, family, but something inside you is no longer in its place. And the hardest part is this: no one notices. Because on the outside, everything looks normal, but on the inside, you know something got lost along the way. You pray, you trust, you believe that God is taking care of everything, and even so, you watch important things slip through your hands, things you're certain came from God. And that's what confuses you. Because it's not just about losing, it's about not understanding why something that felt like a blessing started to fall apart. It's like building something with God, step by step, believing everything is aligned, and suddenly, watching it be taken from you, without warning, without explanation. And then that question stays stuck in your mind. If God gave this to me, why is this happening? And the more you try to understand, the harder it seems to get. Today, you're going to understand the faith of a woman who lived through exactly this. Her story is not about loss. It's about a level of trust that very few ever reach. And there is a decision she made in the most critical moment of her life that reveals something deep about how God works. But before anything else, you need to understand how this story began, the blessing that seemed perfect. In 2 Kings 4:8-17, the Bible presents a Shunammite woman, someone spiritually sensitive, who perceives the value of the presence of the prophet of God and decides to welcome him into her home with honor and generosity. She does not make requests, does not expose pain, does not negotiate miracles. She simply serves with a willing heart. Faced with this, something unexpected happens. A promise is born, not from a declared need, but from the heart of God. She would receive a son, even in an unlikely stage of life. And the most striking thing is this: the blessing arrives without having been sought, like a gift she no longer even knew how to expect. How many things have you already received without having asked directly? Sometimes you look at your story and realize that there are blessings that simply arrived. An opportunity, a relationship, an achievement, something that you did not even place in prayer, but it happened. But at the same time, this creates a silent conflict inside you. Because when something comes from God, we tend to believe that it will be permanent, untouchable. And that is where the tension begins. Are you prepared to understand the purpose behind what God gave you? And if it was God who placed this in your life, why would He allow it to be shaken when everything falls apart? In 2 Kings 4:18-20, time passes, the boy grows, and what was once a promise now becomes part of that woman's routine. A normal day begins like any other, until something unexpected happens. The son feels a sudden pain while he is with his father in the field. He is taken back home, placed in his mother's arms, and there, without warning, life fades away. The same son who was born as a divine answer now dies in silence, without explanation, without preparation. And the strongest part of all this is not just the loss, but the weight of holding in her arms what was once a miracle that came directly from God. And this is where everything becomes difficult to understand. Because looking at your life, you have probably already gone through something like this. Something that arrived as an answer, as God's care, but that suddenly began to be lost, to slip away, to no longer make sense. It is not only the pain that weighs, it is the confusion that comes with it. That question that keeps spinning in your mind without stopping. Why this, if it was God who allowed it back then? It seems contradictory, doesn't it? As if you had received a miracle, and then had to deal with a nightmare involving exactly that. And in the middle of all this, something even deeper arises. How do you keep trusting when God seems to be going in the opposite direction of what He Himself started? The response that no one understands. In 2 Kings 4:23-26, after everything that happened, that woman makes an unusual decision. If you are being impacted by this story and want to continue learning the deepest truths of the Bible, scan the QR code that is appearing on your screen and subscribe to the channel. Because here, we reveal things that almost no one explains to you this way. And what comes next can completely change the way you respond to pain. She does not fall into public despair, does not spread the news, does not give herself over to the chaos around her. When her husband asks where she is going, and then when the servant of the prophet asks how she is, the answer is the same. It is well. And that phrase carries a weight that few perceive, because in that moment, nothing was well. The son had died, the silence of the house was screaming, and even so, she chooses to respond in a way that did not deny reality, but pointed to something beyond it. And this touches something deep. Because if you stop to think, how many times have you had to say, "It is well," when, inside, everything was confused? But here there is a very strong difference. It is not about pretending that nothing happened, nor about hiding the pain. It is about deciding, even in the middle of emotional chaos, that God has not stopped being who He is. There are days when you do not understand, cannot explain, do not see a way out. But even so, there is a silent choice inside you, to keep trusting or to completely lose yourself. And it is exactly here that this story begins to reach another level. Because the most impressive thing was not what she said, it was what she decided to do next. The decision that reveals everything. In 2 Kings 4:21-25, the Bible narrates that in the face of the deepest pain she could experience, that woman takes an action that reveals much more than words. She goes up to the prophet's room, the same place where the promise began to take shape, and there she places the body of her son on the bed. Then she closes the door and leaves, without stopping, without getting distracted, with a clear destination. She needed to find the man of God. There are no records of scattered despair, nor of long explanations. Only a firm decision, almost silent, but filled with purpose. She does not try to resolve it with her own strength. She returns exactly to the point where everything began. When something dies in your life, a dream, a season, something you believed came from God, what is your first reaction? Do you try to control, to understand, to chase immediate answers? Or do you return to the source? Because in practice, that is where everything is revealed. There are moments when the solution is not in doing more, nor in thinking more, nor in trying to fix things, but in returning fully to God, even without clear answers. And a question remains that stirs something deep inside. What if what you are trying to fix on your own can only be restored in the same place where it was born. Faith that persists until the end. In 2 Kings 4:27-30, when she finally finds the prophet, that woman approaches and throws herself at his feet in an intense gesture filled with pain and determination. The servant tries to push her away, but the prophet realizes that there is something deep happening there. And then she speaks, not with uncontrolled revolt, but with a heart that exposes the pain with truth. Did I ask for a son? Didn't I say not to deceive me? Even so, even with this pain exposed, she does not accept to return without an answer. When the prophet sends the servant ahead, she insists. She would not leave while he did not go with her. There is a faith there that does not negotiate, that does not give up halfway, that remains even when everything around seems silent. There are situations in your life that you have already tried to resolve in every way. You have already thought, have already sought advice, have already prayed in your own way, have already tried to move forward. But deep down, it is still there without an answer. And it is at this point that many people walk away, conform, learn to live without it. But here, something different happens. She does not accept to live without an answer. She decides to stay, to insist, to remain until something happens. It is like someone who refuses to leave that empty place without taking an answer from God with them. And a question remains that is impossible to ignore. When everything is stuck and nothing changes, do you learn to live with the absence? Or do you decide to remain until you see God act? The miracle no one expected. In 2 Kings 4:32-37, the prophet arrives at the house, goes up to the room, and finds the boy lying on the bed. He closes the door, remaining alone, and begins to act in an intense and unusual way, seeking God in every movement. There is a process. It is not immediate. He walks back and forth, insists, positions himself again, until something begins to change. The boy reacts, sneezes several times, and then comes back to life. What seemed finished, with no return, is restored in a way that no one there could have foreseen. The promise was not forgotten nor abandoned. It simply went through a path that no one expected. And this completely changes the way you see certain phases of your life. Because there are things that today seem finished, with no way out, as if there were nothing else to be done. But did it really end? Or is there still a process happening, even if you are not seeing anything? Not everything that looks like the end is final. Sometimes it is just a stage that you have not yet understood. And in the middle of all this, a question arises that does not easily leave your mind. If God never lost control, then why allow the pain to come before the answer? This story of the Shunammite woman teaches us more than a miracle. It reveals how faith behaves when everything falls apart. And the most impressive thing is that, even though it happened in the past, this story is still alive today. It continues to repeat itself in the lives of many people. And it may be that, without realizing it, you are living something very similar right now. A season of pain, of silence, of things that do not make sense. But even so, there is something inside you that refuses to give up. And even without understanding everything, you keep going, because your hope in God has not died. When something unexpected happens, when what seemed resolved rises up again, God is not trying to hurt you. There is a deeper purpose being built. God observes how you react, how you position yourself when you do not understand, when you do not see a way out, when everything seems to go in the opposite direction. Because it is at this point that faith is truly revealed. It is not about punishment, it is about growth. It is in this process that you begin to realize whether your trust is only in the blessings or if it is established in God, regardless of what happens. If you stop to look carefully, there is a clear pattern. God gives, God allows processes, and God works on faith much more than on the final result. The greatest blessing was never just the son. It was the faith she developed along the way. A faith that remained, that did not retreat, that did not let go even when everything seemed lost. Because in the end, it is not just about what God gives you, but about who you are becoming as you go through each phase. And maybe this is the deepest part of all of this. Is the focus on what you lost or on what God is forming inside you right now? Because it may be that God is not only restoring something external, but protecting something much more valuable inside you. So let this question stay with you from today on. In the face of everything you are living, who are you becoming? If this message spoke to you, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because here you will learn to develop a faith that remains even when nothing makes sense.